Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julia Gash, and I run a company called Talented, which is a creative and sustainable tote bag brand. We sell all over the world, and I consciously set the company up about 3-4 years ago now as an export-driven brand. So it was a conscious decision to create a brand to sell outside of the UK, even though we're very successful in the UK. One of the reasons for that was because I was also and still run a company called Bidby, Bag It Don't Bin It. We manufacture eco bags, reusable cotton bags under private label for lots of fashion brands here and on the high street and designers, mainly British based, hence I set up an export-led brand. I'd also ran a brand, my own brand, in the 1990s for 10 years, which was about 97% export. So I've been exporting for the best part of 26 years. And as such, I've been through a lot of the sort of hoops and obstacles that you face when exporting. And new ones appear, such as one which will be a very big obstacle to us all, which is the referendum and the decision we have with that, which hopefully, if you are wanting to export and run an export-led business, will be to stay within Europe. So enough of the politics and on to business. Here we go. Why would you want to find a partner? We're going to talk about having partners in different countries, an agent or a distributor. Why would you want to do that? Why not just sell directly to retailers all around the world? Well, quite simply, there's a lot of retailers all around the world. And even in the smallest country, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, and many of which could be interested in your brand. And if you are going to just deal with the retailers directly, that's great. But you will have a lot of admin work. You'll have to actually get to know lots of different business cultures and deal with lots of different currencies maybe, and certainly ways of working. You'll also be working very much in the dark. You won't know necessarily very much about those countries and how they work. So by having a partner, it's having somebody in that country who knows that country. It's their job to spot and find brands all around the world and sell them. That's what they do. That's how they make their money. So if you can find that sort of person who's right for you and you're right for them, then that's a really good solution to growing your brand internationally. So they are not just your sales team, but your marketing team, your business development team around the world. And if you get one who's experienced and well respected in that country, then all the better, because they can really help you grow your brand. There's two main common ways of working with a partner. And one would be as an agency, and one would be as a distribution network. Now, there's pros and cons to both. And so there's no necessarily good way or bad way. It's what's right for you. So an agent would actually be working independently. They're not your employee. They're not stocking your brand. They're not buying your product. They will simply take the sale. So like a salesperson on the road, for which you have agreed a commission to pay. Often it's monthly, sometimes it's quarterly. So they will get X% of whatever sales. Sometimes it's the sales they generate. Sometimes it's all of the sales generated in that country. So it's whatever you agree. And an agreement is whatever you want it to be. The benefit of this is you get the orders directly through them for the customer. So you get to see who it is, where it's going, what it is. Your relationship is with the customer. So you will invoice them, they will pay you. So there's a lot of control in your hands. So whatever happens long term, you've always got that relationship there. They're not going to be marketing your brand. They're just there to take the sale. So obviously their benefit to you, therefore, is limited. It's a pure sales relationship. So you have to really keep them on board and on side, just like any employee. Keep them motivated, keep them informed. So one thing we do is make sure that we send out a weekly bulletin to all our partners with any news. So on the weekly bulletin going out on Friday will be me giving this talk, amongst other things. Could be any key developments, new products, new accounts, new team members. Could be anything. Could be any industry development. It's really important that when your agents are around the world, maybe you might have an agent in Mexico and they may seem a long way away. It's really important that you communicate with them and you pay them on time. Just as you'd pay your staff on time, don't delay paying your agents, because if you forget about them, they'll forget about you and your sales will dry up. And sure, you always have a written agreement. We'll come to written agreements in a little bit. So a distributor is somebody who will represent your brand, not just sell it, but they'll have it in a showroom, or they should have it in a showroom. They should be going out, getting meetings. They should be maybe exhibiting at trade shows like this in their own country. They may buy lots of stock and stock it and sell from that stock to their customers, or they may just consolidate all the orders together each month, each week, each season, however it is they work, and give you those orders on that ad hoc basis. They tend to want to take a big chunk of money for that, because they've got to make their money, because they will want to make their profit to exist, and so they will want to buy it at whatever you're selling it at, plus really about 30% less, and they'll probably put on another 10%. So they're going to make about 40%. So this is something that you've got to consider when you're doing your price list right from the beginning. So when I started Talented, from day one, I worked out a price margin where I could discount down by 30% and still get a healthy margin for my company. And that's what's done all the time. We work on that principle. The other reason for that, if you are also selling to some really big stores, then they'll knock you down anyway. So you need to make sure you've got plenty of margin. I see a lot where you've got emerging designers and they've got their profit margins quite tight and they want to grow and they can't grow. And the reason why they can't grow, they've never factored in enough money for a distributor to come along the way. But, no worries, if it hasn't happened, then there's another way of doing it, which you can have an international price list and a UK price list. But we live in a global marketplace, and it is confusing if your prices are at different points. And in some countries, they will also ask you to set the retail price point for them. And some countries, it's legal, like in Japan. You've got to have a retail price point, which is difficult if you don't know what that should be. But that's where a distributor comes in, because they will guide you. So the benefit of a distributor is they will do all the work for you, but they'll take a big cut for that. If you've got an experienced distributor and you're quite a young brand, then they can massively grow your business and completely take it into a completely different stratosphere to what you can do on your own. I've even heard of distributors who may be distributing, say, a brand in Japan, and then over time and further down the line, they'll actually move to managing a brand globally, and which can obviously be you're talking big bucks when that happens, and the tables turn because they just do all the work for you. It can happen. But most commonly, you will find a distributor who will want to work with you because they like the brand. They think it fits with whatever else they're selling. They probably are selling a few of the brands, which is great. If they're selling hundreds of brands, not so great, because you're going to be just one amongst many. And sometimes, particularly maybe in China, they just want to get brands in. So they want that brand, so they've got it in their portfolio. And you need to be careful they're not just not getting you in there because so they've got you. You want someone who's going to really, really work it for you and deliver. So the thing is, always keep your distributors on side, always deliver on time, always deliver to quality. If there's any issues, you've got to sort it out, just as you would to a retailer down the street. The other thing is, a lot of people work for different brands internationally, so there's a lot of networking that goes on as well. And you might find a distributor of your brand is distributing another brand in another country, and they know another distributor, and they can introduce you, and so it grows like a chain. So again, just find out who they're distributing, get references, and often further down the line, you can probably get introductions too. So where would you find a distributor? Well, there'll be distributors walking around this show, as there will be agents from all around the world. And they'll just be looking for something to take back to their country that isn't really there. I've found several partners at international trade shows such as this. There's something called an OMIS report, which the UKTI, who've sponsored this stand here, produce. I think it is an overseas marketing information something. I think that's what the word OMIS means. I'm actually doing one at the moment with China, so we can find hopefully the best partner for us in China. But I've used OMIS reports successfully in the past to find a partner. And it's like a brief. You give them a brief to say, right, I want to find the best partner for us in this country. And so you connect with your local UKTI rep to the UKTI business partner in whichever country that is. And they give you a quote, and then you say, no, it's too much. And they go and have it for this. And sometimes you can, depending on your budget, you can have it bigger and smaller. So that's how it works, and it can be very effective because in many countries, the British consulates and embassies, they know who the big retailers are, who the big distributors are. Trade missions is another way. The UKTI, they also organise trade missions. I've found partners from trade missions and just networking at UKTI events. That's how I found our Korean distributor, just simply through, it was an awards dinner. And I happened to sit next to someone and so on and so forth, and that's how that came to be. Obviously, you control the internet. You can look at your competitors. You should be looking at your competitors and who stocks them. Some of them very kindly put their stockists up there and their distributors up there. But it doesn't mean to say that that distributor, even though it represents your competitor, would then be interested in you. It doesn't always work like that. So it's not really a shortcut. But still, you can see how businesses grow and how they form partnerships, which is quite useful. Word of mouth and product referral. Any sort of decent distributor will be trawling good shops, looking for good brands. They've got to be on the ball themselves, looking for the next big thing. So if you are in some good destination boutiques or some really nice shops, then it doesn't have to be sort of luxury or expensive. It could be cool, it could be up and coming. It's often up and coming where they will be looking. And that's where they'll be looking for the next product, which could be your range. So just by having your product out there, word of mouth can sometimes find you a good partner too. So finding the right partner is important, and it's costly if you don't get it right because it can hold you back. I've not always got it right. We try and do what we can to eliminate partners that aren't suitable. And what we do is we send them a questionnaire which is asking all about them. We ask them for their sales plan. We ask them for their business plan, their marketing plan. That is something you will want to know. If they're going to represent you in their country, you want to know how they're going to represent you. What resources have they got? Do they have a showroom? Do they have a sales team? Are they online? Because you want to make sure that you make that right decision. Because when you commit to a distribution agreement, you commit usually to a minimum of a year, often 3 years. So I would share my information. I would share my 3-year business plan and my sales strategy and my marketing plan for Talented in exchange for what they're doing, because you want to make sure that you're on the same page. Because if you're not and you've signed an agreement, then to extricate yourself from that agreement is not always easy. Not so much that, but you can miss a better partner that might just be around the corner. And had you waited for that person to come along. It's just like any relationship, really. Obviously, with internet, it's so easy to keep in touch with distributors. I've got a Skype at 8:30 tomorrow morning with our Chinese partner. So it's easy. But if you're running an export business, you've got to sort of be prepared for long hours. I work a lot with our American agent as well as with our distributor in Japan. So that means the very first thing I do in the morning, it's about 7, I'm on emails with Asia. And then occasionally there may be the odd email from our agent in America, which can go well into the evening. I have a team who field most of that, but it still sometimes may come to me. So just be prepared for long days until you can employ people to do all that for you. But it's fun, it's exciting. You know, the longer the day, the more opportunities you can have. So it's all good. So this is our Greek distributors, and that's our Korean distributor. You get to also travel the world. If you make enough profit, go and see them and invest it back in, build that relationship. So I travel quite a bit. And also when I travel, I find out so much more about how we can grow our brand in that country, and it helps us develop our products too. But having an agreement is critical. You don't have to pay a solicitor to get a really fancy, expensive agreement. You can download one for very little money from the internet, from companies such as the Contract Store, and you can amend that to fit you and to fit your needs are. But be clear on what you agree to. When are they going to get paid? They'll want terms, particularly if they're carrying stock. They'll want 30-day, 60-day terms. What are the delivery terms you're agreeing to? Is it going to be Ex Works, FOB London? Is it going to be delivered, DDP, to their store? What are the Inco terms? What are the delivery terms? Because delivery can sometimes be more than the cost of your products. So you need to make sure that that's really nailed down. And it's not a problem, whatever it is, as long as you're clear on what it is and that it's agreed. And make sure it's manageable for you as well. Don't agree to something that you can't manage. If you know 90 days credit terms is going to kill you, because it would me, don't agree to it. And just explain you're a small emerging brand. This is what you need. And if they want you, they'll agree to that and probably pay a deposit too. So most distributors will want to work exclusively in their country. That's natural, and that's a normal request, because if you are selling to 2 or 3 or 4 or more distributors with your product, then they're all pitching to the same retailers, and that's going to be very, very confusing, and it's not going to be good for your brand. And also your brand could be oversold. So it might be good for one season, but it's not going to be good after that. You don't want that. So most will want exclusivity. Now, obviously, you're going to be quite nervous about giving someone exclusivity if they've got no track record there. So one thing you can do is tie in some minimum sales values, which is what we do. So they've got to hit, I don't know, just say a figure, 50,000 within the first year, 100,000 second year, 150,000 third year, as an example, to keep that exclusivity. If not, after each year, you can renegotiate for non-exclusivity. There may be some key accounts you want to keep as house accounts that you don't want them to have, but you can't all keep your crown jewels to yourself. Otherwise, what's in it for them? But if you do give them a good account to look after, you want to make sure that that's well managed and well monitored, so you don't lose that if you're already working with a big account in a country. So having something in writing is critical. If it's verbal, then you haven't got an agreement and you haven't really got on a relationship. It's also really important that they do it your way in terms of knowing what your brand is about. They really need to understand the product, because product knowledge is key to all sales. And if you know about the product, it's very empowering, and they will be able to sell it a lot better. So when I went to do some training with our Greek distributors 2 or 3 years ago, I wrote a training manual for distributors, which now just evolves. It's about that thick. But it goes through everything in terms of our writing style, to obviously our brand guidelines, but stories behind each collection, about the designers, all sorts of things. And that's updated all the time. Took me a long time to do it, but once you've done it, it's done. And what it means is they've got that knowledge then, that information to help sell their brand. So we have an online resource for our partners too. And you want to make sure they've got all the imagery, all the photography, everything they need to sell your brand. We do a little weekly bulletin. So as I mentioned earlier, that also just keeps them in touch with what's going on and keeps them included and engaged in your brand, just as you would do with an employee. It's also important to really listen to what they're saying. Some of the distributors may be far more experienced than you are in business, and that's fantastic if that's the case, because you've got all that free knowledge there which can help you, and that guidance. So when you can and when you can afford it, sometimes the UKTI do funded missions, which are supported, which is helpful if that's the case. But when you can, go and visit them I don't think I can't remember the last holiday I've actually ever had when I haven't worked on that holiday. I'll twin it with a visit to a distributor. Greece was my last one, or an Italian agent, because I don't know, I think I've forgotten about travelling when work's not involved. There's always something I'm doing. It seems to be a reason for travelling. We also do a feedback questionnaire. That's really important after each season, because you want to know from them. Sales can tell you one thing, but there's sometimes a big story behind that, which they won't always say. I mean, we sell a lot to Asia. The buyers are a lot smaller than British buyers. So you go from going there and actually seeing not just what our distributor is selling, but what's selling in the shops, and then how our product fits in with what's selling in Japan or Korea or Singapore. Then it gives you a lot more sort of knowledge, and we've adapted our product accordingly. We also do a blog on our website, so we get our partners to contribute to that too, and just tell us their story, which is really, really interesting. Again, it engages them. So just sort of like, this is a typical 6 months, I guess. So in the last 6 months, we've signed up 3 new partners in 3 different countries. We actually moved on from 2 partners. So there were 2 partners that weren't delivering. So that happens, you know. You think it's going to be great, but it doesn't always. And you don't want an agent or a distributor sat there if they're not delivering, because they're just going to block the way if another one comes along. Because if another one's interested, then you go, well, we have got an agent, but they're not doing anything. But then you've got to get rid of them, and that could be 90 days notice on an agreement. So I travelled around visiting our partners and retailers in several countries. We're just opening now a company and a warehouse facility in Hong Kong, because about 80% of our seasonal collections actually are North America, Asia Pacific region. So that means there's no logical sense of having a warehouse here in the UK for those countries, because the freight coming in from the Far East and import duty, well, why would I pay that when I can actually take it out of Hong Kong? So we've now got to that size where we can actually make those decisions. So we have a lot of video Skype, sort of several times a week, really, and e-shots as well. So what's happening in the next 6 months? As I said, we're always developing product, and a big influencer is the information that comes in from our partners and agents. So we're now just starting to recruit for a sales manager and opening a shared office space in Hong Kong. So we're starting small, but hopefully that will grow. Because for us to manage the Asia Pacific region the best, really, we want someone on that timeline, so I don't have to get up at 5, 6 in the morning, which will be nice. So as I mentioned earlier, we're working on an OMIS, and one of my team's going to be in China next month, visiting potential partners. I'm doing a live art installation in a key retailer that we supply in Thailand. They love that. If you can do anything live or engaging, which engages their customers, that's a real big win. They love all that. So I did one last year in Hong Kong. I'm doing one in Thailand next year. No, April, end of April this year. And we're hoping to be at Hong Kong Trade Show as well, end of April. So we're very much an international brand. That's how I set it out to be. I don't see it as hard work. I see it as a real fun journey. It's so fun. It's so interesting. And it's great when I get, an email from someone like in Singapore, and they've bought something of mine from Glasgow, and then they want something else, and it's just really interesting to see your product just go all around the world. And you can be walking down a street in another country, and someone's got one of our tote bags, and I know it. And it's one of those little buzzers, which is it's nice to have. So yeah, we're all over the world. I think we're about 75% exports at the moment. One of the things I do when I do travel around the world is I write little postcards on a blog, on a talented website. So that's just 3 when I was traveling in Asia. And it just gives people a little snippet of a day in the life of what it's like to be in business when you're traveling around. And it's not glamorous. 6 days in Hong Kong, I had 13 meetings to attend, because if you're spending all that money to going over there, you've got to work it. So, and that's what it's like. But it's great fun.